quick. So I did Shuumatsu Touring, or also touring after the apocalypse. So this is a manga original done by an author named Saito Sakae. For those of you who might have recognized the name from somewhere, that's because this person is also the author of Katana Maidens, also known as Toji no Miko. So this is their, I believe, not their like, yeah, I believe this their second like proper complete like work, not complete as in like it ended, but like the second like full work. That's not just like in support of somebody. But it did get picked up by an anime production studio named Nexus, and Nexus pulled in one of their sort of the people they've worked with a couple of times, Tokumoto Yoshinobu. And Tokumoto Yoshinobu has been director in Prince of Tennis 2, Comic Girls, Darwin's Game, and he worked for Nexus, I believe, in one. He was episode director for one of the works, in Oniai. So for those of you who don't know,
Wow.
Oniai is short for お兄ちゃんだけど愛さえあれば関係ないよね. So it's that series where it's like there's one guy and there's like he he goes into like he rooms with like three different girls or whatever it is. Or he doesn't room with three different girls. I think it's like he rooms with his sister who's in love with him, and then two other,
Mm.
and then he also like he meets with a bunch of other like student council members, and they also like fall in love with him or something like that. And it's also not like it's not like Seito Kainai's son. It has like an extra sister, but it was during that period of time in anime. But anyways, so
Yeah,
Nexus
back
Studio
before
pulled this
things
guy.
weren't woke.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hooray.
yeah, yeah. The opening was good, I will say, for ODI, but
Yeah, we're alright, man.
that's why I enjoyed it. Sorry,
Yeah.
Nier. Just but anyways, Tokumoto as the director pulls in a Nexus Studio pulled in Tokumoto alongside a bunch of experienced veteran staff. So you'll see people like Akitaka Jin as sound director. Obviously, he's done a billion different series. A bunch of other veteran people as well to create the team for this project. Most of the staff do not really have connections with Tokumoto, so it was mainly like the Nexus production committee people, kind of just running around trying to gather people. The only exception is Fudeyoshi Kazuyuki, I believe, who has worked with him on a couple of series. I think it's like Pripara. He worked with him on Oniai with Nexus, a couple of other series. So they kind of got pulled together as a duo, as a package, as is usual with like script writers usually have a closer connection with the directors than a lot of the other staff members. So that's the team we're working with right now. The voice acting cast, we have mainly just the two main characters. So the two main characters in this series, as you can see from the poster art, the brown haired girl named Yoko and the gray haired girl named Airi are sort of the two main characters. Everybody else is kind of like eh, elements of the world. But Yoko, the brown haired girl, is voiced by Inagaki Konomi. So Inagaki Konomi has kind of been slowly making a name for herself in the recent years. She voiced the main character, Yua Serifu, in the titular Do It Yourself, as well as the female wife, the main character or the main heroine, Mina, in My Wife Has No Emotion. I believe both of them are dark covered as well. And then the white hair girl named Airi is voiced by Tomi Tamiyu. Tomi Tamiyu, I think, for anybody that's been in tune with the voice acting kind of stuff in the recent years, should be relatively recognizable. She did Riko in Made in Abyss, Rizogata in Bokuben, Gabriel and Gabriel Dropout. She's been having a steady stream of main roles here and there in the past few years. Other than that, all the supporting characters and stuff like that are mostly people who have not had their like real big breakouts yet. You'll see a couple of big names in there, like Tomatsu Haruka here and there, but for the most part, it's just those two main girls. Going over to the OPED, opening is uh, a song called Touring by Konton Candy. So Konton Candy is a three-member female J-pop, J-rock band. I would say overall the opening very nondescript storyboard. It's just them being like, "Yeah, we're riding motorcycle here and there," and it's a very standard. The song itself is also very standard 2010s slower pace, happy J-pop and song kind of vibes. So nothing really to write home about. And the ending is Glide, so by Muk. So Muk is the handle name that is used by the nickname used by Kumagawa Miyu. Kumagawa Miyu being a singer-songwriter from Kumamoto, Japan, and and I believe Miyuk also did the ending for Butareba recently. But overall, again, ending is even more nondescript storyboard than the opening. It's like the whole like static pictures of like the the characters kind of I guess sitting in their motorcycle or like waving at each other or stuff like that. But if the song itself is a little bit faster paced than the opening, which makes it seem in these days it makes it seem more like the opening than the opening itself. So it's a little bit of an interesting dichotomy there. The visuals, I'm personally not a big fan of the anime character proportions and designs done by Miyochi Nusaku for the anime in specific. It's a little bit like how do I say this? It's a little bit more stretched out vertically, so the eyes and like the face and everything is like thinner. It kind of reminds me of what Dio Media did, Dio Media or and Studio Dino did here and there back in the days. Um, and I know that this is not the original ratios because I searched how, what the original manga character designs were by Saito, the artist, and those were fine, but the anime character designs and the proportions left a little bit to be desired. Um, the animations themselves overall weren't terrible, outside of a couple of mouth animations where I'm like, yeah, this is a little bit lazy. Like you could like try a little bit better to time the mouth movement so it's like it sticks a little bit better to the talking, please.
Nice.
Um, you can fix that on the sound direction end, you can fix it on the animation end, one of the end, but it does need to be like it wasn't very good. But and also that like stands out a little bit because there's just not that much animation in general in this series because it's mostly just like slice of life and side views of riding a motorcycle, right? When there's action, usually it's them being like, yeah, we're gonna ride a motorcycle to somewhere, and then they start the motorcycle, and the motorcycle is in 3D CG, so they only really have to animate the faces, right? So it's like, hey, come on, guys, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
There's obviously okay use of 3D CGI, but again, that's me just talking about how the tanks and the motorcycles and the vehicles and stuff like that are animated. Um, they're done okay, but it's 2025. That should be a pretty low standard, right? So, um, the BGM was okay. The slice of life and the slow parts were much better done than the BGM during sort of the frenetic and the action oriented parts. However, nothing really stood out and it wasn't that impressive, which is disappointing considering that the person behind the music is actually Suihiro Kenichiro. So Suihiro Kenichiro, his previous works have included Akasaka, Akane Iro ni Sumaru Saka from a while back, Fire Force, Goblin Slayer, Eminence and Shadow. I didn't like the series, obviously the story and the setup, but there's some very memorable BGMs for those of you who have listened to it, right? Um, Golden Kamuy, Shadow's House, ReZero, Undead Unluck. Like he's had some pretty fucking good runs, but obviously this one was a little bit lackluster coming from him, so a little bit disappointed. Okay, so going into the story a little bit, essentially is you just have the TLDR is uh, we're in post-apocalyptic Japan. Um, Civilization has collapsed, and like all the stuff is there, but it's like all the buildings and like kind of stuff has been mostly preserved, but like there are no real people there, and then everything has been overgrown with like moss and plants and all this crap, right? So, the two girls, Yoko and Airi, are kind of writing, and Idy is also kind of on. I believe she is like an android or something like that. But they are taking a motorcycle and they're riding through the apocalypse. So they're going through post-apocalyptic Japan, and a lot of it's like mainly lighthearted. It's a slow journey through this imagined depiction of post-apocalyptic renditions of the general like Japan area. A lot of it's usually focused around like the Tokyo area, the Chiba area, that sort of area, right? Eastern Tokyo, or sorry, Eastern Japan, Tokyo kind of area, right? Um, the focus is mainly on scenery. It's stuff like slice of life stuff like food, them kind of making very lighthearted jokes, stuff like that. There are some sentimental expositions of different stuff that they find in areas, right? Because there's like obviously leftover um mem- mementos, right? There's stuff like robots that and stuff like that that have like pieces of the world that build up the world exposition and premise by explaining what happened in the lead up to the apocalypse, right? And this
Right.
apocalypse did not happen like a million years ago, I believe. Um, this apocalypse happened within the lifetime of the main characters, right? So it's like
Huh.
a lot of this like build up going on and stuff, but a lot of the sort of stuff outside of the world, the robots and all this other stuff that reminisce about what happened before the apocalypse, a lot of them are used to more evoke in this how do I say this, like instinctive sadness kind of is supposed to be this like quick like cathartic boom, like you're sad now, the apocalypse happened, they got into a bad situation, their dog died or whatever, and it's not really like a deeper theme, like a dive into like a deeper thematic insight as you would you know how that happens with something like Majin no Tabi Tabi or Kino no Tabi or something like that,
Yeah.
right? XX Natavi, right? Um, it's less of a deeper thematic insight and more just like, yeah, I was like mildly happy before the apocalypse, and then the apocalypse happened, and I was sad, kind of business. And I was like,
That does tend to happen.
yeah, that does happen when Thanos is like fucking snapping your family,
Yeah.
right? And I was a little bit. I, I, I just felt like that was a little bit on the nose. I mean, as always, that's not my sound. I was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, but like, were we? And I think in this case, like, I usually do say like a series doesn't always need to do like super deep thematic dives, but I feel like in this case, it's a little bit justified for me to ask like, okay, where is this going, right? Because it's like at the point where all you're doing is like, I'm trying to make you sad by showing you something that was before the apocalypse, and now it's after the apocalypse. It's like what are we doing? We're just doing like emotional plays here, like emotional fake outs, and I feel like I wanted a little bit something more if that was the case, or like it doesn't even have to be thematic as in like how people view death or how people view the inevitability or whatever. But I feel like it would have been better if it was just like um even if it was just about the build up just before the apocalypse, like how people uh saw different parts of the apocalypse, right? A little bit more and build just that specific parts of the world without even going into deeper themes, just being like, oh, people were panicking and doing all this stuff, right? Like that would have been, I think, nice, but it wasn't really like that. So I was like, oh, okay. Now you're just like, now all you're showing me is like, before apocalypse, people were happy. Now apocalypse happened, people were sad. It's like, sure. So a little bit disappointing. And then the other stuff was also a little bit like, because when people are going through this sort of journey and it's like two girls trying to find out stuff in post-apocalyptic Japan or whatever, a lot of that like focus for them is like, hey, in Akiba, yeah, Akiba, this stuff happened, or like in Odaiba, there was this stuff, and that's sort of the main brunt of what it seems like to be the manga, where it's like in this city there was this stuff, and then the apocalypse happened, or like in blah 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 in region there's this building, and then the apocalypse happened, and there's not really like much trivia beyond that. Um, and then the rest of the scene is either doing like very light jokes, or they're like, "Hey, we found something pre-apocalypse, like we found a radio, or we found food, like beans or ramen or whatever it is, right?"
Nice.
And I I'm just sitting here thinking like, okay, so again, I don't want to sound too Machiavellian, but it's like where is the value of the series? Like, why am I watching this series? Right? Because it's like if I'm watching it for like the cute girls doing a slice of like just like, oh, we're just kind of happily going through something. Like, I don't need to watch Shimatsu Touring, right? There's a billion other series that have like, you know, two, three, four, five girls in some setting happily going through stuff, right? And they do it better than this stuff, and this series does. If we're talking about like trivia and girls, cute girls in a club, this or cute girls not necessarily in a club, but cute girls in a group, right? Um, this series doesn't really do it better, right? The emotive aspect, the emotional aspect, the sort of forced catharsis, it doesn't really do that well either. So it's like, again, like, why am I watching this series? There's no real reason for me to watch this series. It's like innocuous, but it's not good. It's not. I'm not like, oh, I'm watching the series because X, Y, Z, right? So it's a little bit disappointing because it's not enough for a series to be innocuous and not like outright terrible. A a series needs to have a reason for me to watch it. Like, there are these cool things going on. There are these girls doing this stuff. There, and when the girls are doing this stuff, it's cool. It's fun to watch because X, Y, Z. Like, that needs to be a thing. Even Yuru Yuri, right? It's like Yuru Yuri initially started out with just like, oh, we're just girls in a club, I guess. And when people asked, implicitly, right, figuratively asked, hey, why is this series worth watching? You guys haven't even given the name of the club that these girls are in. They're just in a club talking to each other. Yuri Yuri showed up with having some of the better dialogue, best dialogue, right? That we saw in recent years with
Yeah.
regards to having girls in club. So that was it's like value adder, and people were like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll watch this." But this doesn't do that. So I'm like, like sure. Um, so unfortunately, like, I'm very disappointed. The whole like, oh, hey, friend, do you see that over there? That's Odaiba, or that's Chiba, or that's Tokyo Tower, but with overgrown moss. That can only go so far. So a little bit disappointing. I expected a lot more from the author, but I guess this was the extent of what the Katana Maiden author could provide us. So I don't know, man. Uh, Overall, I would probably give this a 3.5 out of 10. I think a regular person would probably just give it a 4, right? Just be like, it's just below average. That's about it. But I am a little bit more negative. It's not outright bad, but it's like I'm a little bit more negative on series that don't really give me a reason to watch the anime. Like, you need to give me a reason to watch the anime, right? Like, what
Yeah.
are we talking about here? I don't want to spend an hour being like, oh, it's girl, she on motorcycle, she see Gundam statue, but it has moss on it. Like, that's not no. So a little bit disappointed. So but yeah, that was Shuumatsu, also known as Touring After the Apocalypse. Again, manga original, created by the author behind Katana Maidens, Toji no Miko, and adapted by Nexus Studio alongside a couple of subcontractors there, pulling a couple of people, director from Onia. Unfortunate that it kind of I blame the source material mainly for this. It didn't have much to stand upon, but it is what it is.